making about this much of a dent in the country portion of the inbox. Here's 7 albums that worked and 2 that won't be hanging around. Check it out.
I turned 21 in prison, doing life without parole. No one could steer me right, but Mama tried.
What's going on, vinyl community? You know, I realized it had been about a month or so since I had made my last honky-tonk update. And I've been listening to quite a bit of country lately, dispersed in with the metal as always. And here's a handful, 9 that I went through in the past week or so. Out of them all, I was pretty surprised. About 7 of them will be hanging around here permanently, finally finding their way out of the inbox, although making only a very minor dent in it. And there's a couple that just won't be hanging around. You can go up for trade, whatever. If you're interested, leave me a comment and let me know. But let's get rolling. First up, here's the great George Jones. This is on the Mercury Wing imprint. And I'll show you the label on this one. It's actually pretty cool. So Wing was an imprint of Mercury, and they had this blue label. They're really hard to date. This one is, it seems to be from around the early to mid 60s, and anything George touches is fantastic. This came to me from Mibbertube. It was part of his VCLT package. It's actually a fantastic album. Lots of banjos, lots of steel guitar, lots of fiddle. It's just got that fantastic early 60s country meets rockabilly sound to it. Absolutely fantastic album. So this would have been right before George married Tammy Wynette, and before a lot of his other problems set in, his career kind of changed. So, I mean, if you dig like early Wanda Jackson, that kind of rockabilly stuff, or just rockabilly in general, this is a phenomenal ad. Anything George did during this period was. So definitely a huge winner and one to check out. Another one from Mibber, part of his VCLT. Here's the Maddox Brothers and Rose, Go Honkytonkin. This is from 1965. This is on the cool Yellow Hilltop label. This is just a good old-fashioned, knee-slapping, good old honky-tonk cowboy country music. It sounds as if it could have been recorded in a barn. And not in a bad way. It doesn't sound bad, but it's just, you know, you imagine in the mid-60s, you're in the barn, the lights are there, all your good old honky-tonk friends are there. This has that sound to it. It's just songs about heartbreak or husbands that haven't been quite faithful, waking up with hangovers. This is fantastic stuff. Again, it's got a bit of that 60s country rockabilly sound to it, but really it's just more good old country music. Yeah, that kind of stuff. It's actually really, really fantastic. And, you know, along with the George Jones album, and there's actually one other I'll get to in a future video, but these were excellent. And Mark, thanks for sending them along, because I loved them. Definitely one worth checking out. The Maddox Brothers have been around for ages at this point, and I believe Rose went on to a solo career. I don't have anything she did later on vinyl, but it might be worth checking out. There you go. Johnny Cash, Mean as Hell. This is 1965 on Columbia. This is an original first pressed. This is 1A stampers. This is Columbia 2i label. You know, I find Johnny all over the place. I just don't find Johnny in really good shape. And this one was absolutely gorgeous, so it was an instant had to have it. As far as Johnny albums go, you know, just reading about it, a lot of these classic country albums have killer write-ups on the back. So you don't even have to go rely on what's on the internet, which really just makes it that much of a more intimate experience. You can spin the album and read the back or the liner notes, and you don't have to Google or look anything up online. So this, I guess as it turns out, Johnny's producer was kind of, hey, when are you going to do that Western album? You know, just by the title alone, Mean as Hell, I was kind of expecting something a little more mean or maybe a little more outlaw. And I guess to some degree it is, but what it really is, it's just trail riding cowboy songs about the Old West. There's a great write-up on back about how Johnny went ahead and prepared for the album, kind of sleeping under the old trees and riding the old range on a horse himself. You know, there's not a whole lot of energy here. It's really just those ancient cowboy songs, you know, would along with Marty Robbins' gunfighter ballads and trail songs, it would be a perfect accompaniment to that. If you have that, you know what I'm talking about. It probably won't get a whole lot of turntable time, but just as a near mint first press piece in the Johnny Cash collection, and one that it was a buck. For that alone, it's got to stay. I don't know. I'd approach it with caution unless true cowboy trail songs are your thing. Not a bad album, just not great. Contender for the most screwed up cover in history. First of all, you gotta look at that. Look at all this like fiber tape. I don't know if that's what you call it. You can actually see the fibers in the tape, the strings. You couldn't rip this, you know, if you were Hercules, and if you tried. You could have like an incredible Hulk moment and like try to rip it. You'll never get through that tape. So, but it's Ernest Tubb and the Texas Troubadours, and I have a few other albums by Ernest. Again, same thing. This was $1. It turned up, it's the Decca label, the fantastic label. The vinyl was in great shape. The cover was just shot, and I mean lunched. Look, all split apart. I guess it's kind of cool. Whoever had it loved it, enjoyed it, wanted to keep it and hang on to it. But more about the album, it's just good old down-home Texas country music by Ernest Tubb. Loretta Lynn's early running mate and partner. You just really can't get any better. Tons of steel guitars and just great songs. It's a phenomenal album. Definitely one to keep your eye out for. The title, By Request, the write-up on the back, again with those write-ups, they put it out to the fans. What songs do you want to hear on an Ernest Tubb album? And there you go. So aptly named and just an outstanding early 60s country album. Definitely one worth checking out. They say for every 10 emails, there should be one phone call. And for every 4 hits and ones that are going to stay in the collection, there's got to be one that just didn't work for you. And that is Charlie Louvin's Lonesome Is Me. Now, this is Charlie well into his solo career in the mid-60s. I want to say this is maybe 65, 66. For me, it just wasn't that good. It's on that Yellow Hilltop label as well. Got Charlie in his country suit there. There were a couple moments on this album, but not even a couple songs that really ever took off. There's just lots of orchestration. There's lots of strings. There's lots of background vocals like, ooh. It's almost a stretch to even call it a country album, to be honest with you. It wasn't that great. And you know what? It's about as boring as Tiger Woods with one woman. Alright, that one's out of the way. So now here's Wanda Jackson's Country from 1970. I vowed to pick up everything I can by Wanda Jackson, the queen of rockabilly, after finding a few of her early 60s albums and just loving them to death. So this was an immediate buy. So the queen of rockabilly turns out a completely rockabilly-free album because it's all country singles. It's actually really good. There's a couple of times it borders kind of on pop. There's not really no country elements to be found. But overall, most of it does. And when you kind of take it as a whole, it's really got to grab you at those moments and say, wait a minute, that's not a country song. It's songs about like wayward husbands that are very soon about to meet the backside of their frying pan. About a couple sitting on bar stools wondering how it all went wrong. And drunken Saturday nights and repent on Sunday morning. So just about everything you could ask for and expect in a country album. Vocally, Wanda's great. This was easily on par with anything Loretta Lynn was doing at the time. If you know and love Loretta Lynn's albums from the late 60s and early 70s, more the early 70s, you'll love it. It easily hold a candle to Loretta. Fantastic album. Definitely worth checking out. Jeannie Riley's Harper Valley PTA. This has to be on one of the coolest labels that I ever see. You just don't see stuff like this anymore. It's on Plantation Records. So you have that green and yellow label. So anyways, Harper Valley PTA. This is from, 1967, 1968. This is crazy. I mean, everyone knows Harper Valley PTA. It was written by Tom T. Hall, one of the greatest country storytellers. And I just look at the pictures, and just the period, and just the way it looks is awesome to begin with. This turned up for 50 cents. It's in great shape. There's some hairlines and stuff, but it plays fine. And what a hoot of an album. One of my absolute favorites. It's just about, anatomy lessons from the Widow Jones to the 13-year-old boys in school. What was the other one? Sippin' Shirley Thompson's Dictionary of Four-Letter Words. Right down to what's going on in the PTA itself and how dirty and underhanded it is. The characters in this just continue to return through each song, and it's really just about one woman's look about everything, and I mean everything that's wrong in Pretty Little Old Peyton Place, or Satan Place. An absolute hoot of an album, and one I've spun a handful of times already, and it's definitely going to stay in the inbox for a long time. Definitely check you out, some Jeannie Riley Harper Valley PTA. You'll love it. 1967, the first female superstar of country music. Here is Kitty Wells, Queen of Honky-Tonk Street. This is on Decca, like a lot of the early country albums. And you know what, this was, it never really caught fire, but it didn't settle either. What it kind of sounded like is, I have this image of a honky-tonk bar burned into my brain from the movie The Blues Brothers, right? Do you remember when the Blues Brothers, they pulled up at the bar and they were going to play there? And it was, you know, they said, what kind of music do you have here? It was Bob's Country Bunker was the name of the place. And they said, oh, we got both. We got country and western. And they were blues acts, so they're kind of screwed. Now, if you remember the movie, the crowd that packs in, you know, with their beers at their table and their John Deere caps and their black shirts, this would have been the proper soundtrack for that bar that night, more so than the Blues Brothers were. Although I had no issue with what the Blues Brothers played, because that's a great soundtrack. But this sounds just like that. Or at the same time, it could have been just a series of what would have been on the jukebox in a honky-tonk at that time. It takes that style as far as it'll let it, through a few slower numbers, through a few more upbeat numbers, but it's full of steel guitars, full of country, and it's absolutely outstanding. This was a great album. Check it out. 1, 2, skip a few, and here's the last one of the bunch. You have Buck Owens and his Buckaroos, Tall Dark Stranger. An utter disappointment for me. I could not stand this. This was right around 1969 or 1970, so Buck Owens was pretty well Mr. Hee-Haw at that point. And just from reading the back and then reading after stuff on the web, it seems like it's pretty universal consensus on Capitol that his career kind of started to suffer at that point. Yeah, I don't know. A lot like the earlier one we talked about with Charlie Louvin, just a lot of orchestration, strings, a lot of the oohs in the background. Not really a whole lot of redeeming country elements, rockabilly elements, just none of that. Honky Tonk here, it really was just not a very good album for me, not something I dug at all. So this, along with Charlie Louvin, like I said in the beginning of the video, leave me a comment, shoot me a PM. If it's your deal, if it's stuff you're missing, if it's stuff you don't like, let me know. You know, throw something out there, let's trade, let's get them moving and get this in somebody's collection. Or inevitably, this and Charlie just end up getting redonated. But yeah, it's, I don't know. If you're digging your way into country like I am and getting deeper and deeper, avoid it. So that's it, vinyl community. There's the last 9 that came out of the country inbox. Like I said, barely made a dent, but it's fun to make videos, so I guess we'll just keep going. Thanks for watching. Feel free to leave a comment below if you have one, and I'll catch you later.